What is going on, YouTube? It's EK here, and today we are going to be going through my journey for a hunt for a new gaming headset. So, I've been wanting a new gaming headset, but wasn't really sure what to get. So, I looked on a ton of reviews and a lot of Google searches to see which one was really the best, or at least one within my price range. So, let's go straight into it, and I'll show you what I've been using, what I've tested, and also what I'm looking for. So let's go right in. Right now, I'm using the Logitech 533. I got this probably a little over 2 years ago. I want to say I probably got it somewhere around when Call of Duty Modern Warfare in 2019 came out. Um, I needed something a little bit more substantial to know where people were coming from and like where they were. And normal speakers was just not doing it for me, so I needed something a little bit better, but also at the time wasn't willing to pay for like $200-300 headphones. And these were pretty good, like they suffice. A few things of what I really liked about them were that one, they were lightweight, they were pretty decent, um the sound wise and the software wise, like they did its job pretty well. I think the Logitech G software definitely allow me to customize a lot of EQ settings if need be. It had spatial audio, which is also very nice, like something that's very useful when it comes to a game like Warzone and like Apex and whatnot, where you need to hear almost exactly where players are. This was very useful. So that was very good. It was very comfortable. Like I like the cloth material that was on the headphones, both in the ears and the upper bar area. It was also it's good because for me I get pretty sweaty and I get that ear sweat. So the cloth, it's a little bit better in terms of it being a little more breathable. However, it also definitely means it absorbs oils and sweat. So, it's a little bit harder to clean. But it also makes it just feel a little bit better. But arguably, in the 2 years I've had it, it's like it's never gotten super gross or anything, as long as you upkeep it. Another thing great about this is that the mic was foldable in the sense that I can pretty much not use the mic, because after I got these headphones, I did eventually get a Blue Yeti mic. So I pretty much use the Blue Yeti mic full time instead of using the actual mic on the sucker. So it was nice that I can just fold it up, and pretty much not use it, which is something that was a quality of life feature that I didn't realize I wanted until I basically used these headphones. So in terms of what I'm looking for in my next set of uh, my next headset is perfectly, or first of all, is fit. Fit for me is huge because I have a huge head. To give you some examples, I have a um my head is a size 8 when it comes to a fitted baseball cap. So I think it's about like a minimum or a maximum of 24-inch circumference around my head. So that's a horizontal circumference. So I have a pretty big head, and those ball caps barely fit my head. Obviously, you're not wearing headphones horizontally. You're wearing them vertically. But just to kind of give you a gauge of like how big my overall head is, I need a headset that actually fits my head, and unfortunately, that does reduce a lot of the number of like great headphones that I can actually use because of my big head. So that was number one. Number two is obviously comfort. The weight and material need to be something just like that's really good for me. Granted, I mean, I would say that I will probably favor some of the more cloth or fabric headphones that I'm testing or that I have tested, but arguably the leather is not a bad thing either, even though it is a little bit warmer. It depends on how warm. I'll go through a few play sessions with everyone just to make sure that I'm not sweating bullets at the end of it. As long, even if I'm a little warm, it's fine. That's going to be generated no matter what. But as long as I'm not like, I take it off and there's just like a film of sweat on there, that as long as it's not that. The material obviously also has to be just good stuff. Even if it is leather, I want it to be good leather. I don't want some kind of crappy like material that's just going to start peeling in a few months. Like I don't want any of that. So something that's actually made with quality. Sound quality, obviously one of the biggest things is it has to sound good. It has to have the ability for me to manipulate the EQ settings. Not that I know a whole lot about that stuff, but I would want at least the ability to do that without having to download, some kind of third party software. When I say third party, that's something that's outside of the manufacturer software that can actually help with this. Now, obviously, if I get a soundboard or something with that, then that's a whole nother story. But I want something that can work more or less right out of the box. Maybe click on a few settings without having to go through a ton of like testing or, a lot of audio file knowledge that I don't have. I don't want to. I don't need something that's like super complicated. So sound quality is definitely a big thing. Having spatial sound is definitely a big thing. But just overall, I don't want static. I don't want to have to be able to manipulate or I don't want to have to go through too many settings in order just to get the sound to work. So that's number one thing about in terms of quality. Mic quality. So even though I said earlier I do use my Blue Yeti mic pretty much 100% of the time, I also would like to have the ability to use my mic in case I don't want a giant um, microphone in my face. I want to use something that's just on my mic, um, or just on my headset mic, so that it's a little bit easier and a little bit more portable. Especially if I like, if I were to game elsewhere, like if I ever travel somewhere, I want to be able to use that mic instead of bring the Blue Yeti with me, obviously, because that's stationary here. So I want to be able to do that at the very least. Also, in terms of quality, there's more of a quality of life feature, but basically something I said earlier when I discovered on the Logitech is that it also has a foldable mic. So I want a mic that's either foldable or detachable. That way I can not have to use it. And if I don't use it, I don't want it in my face either. So something where it's like I can kind of hide it away is also going to be a feature that I'm looking for. In terms of build quality, I want something that just feels good. It kind of goes with number two in terms of material. I don't want this to feel flimsy. I don't want things to break. I want things to feel like they can stand the test of time. And I'm not looking for a toy here. I'm looking for quality, and hopefully, most of the companies that I looked at all have pretty good build quality. But obviously, personal perception is going to be a little bit different once I actually get my hands on it. Next, I want it to be wireless. So this is more of a quality of life type of thing. I know wired headsets are going to be better quality overall, but I don't think I'm going to be able to really tell the difference. Like at this point in technology, the difference between wired and wireless in terms of sound quality is pretty much like neck and neck. I mean, wired is probably still going to be, a little bit better, but unless you're a huge audiophile, you're probably not going to hear that much difference in it. In terms of latency, I'm pretty sure wireless is also pretty much up there now. I'm not a competitive gamer. I'm not in tournaments or anything like that. So I'm pretty sure that the wireless, the latency, whatever is there, I think it's like about 20 hertz or something like that. It's good enough, like it's not going to be so detrimental that I'm going to hear footsteps or like, someone is going to come around the corner and then like 5 minutes or like, 3 seconds later, the footsteps I hear, come later. Right. Like it's not going to be that type of crazy latency. Like pretty much it's like almost a 1-to-1 in terms of like human, or at least my own human perception. Like everything is pretty much like on beat. Like there's very little latency that I can actually humanly perceive. So wireless is for me, as I like to move around and all that stuff. So it's just more of a quality of life. I don't want to handle a cord that's near me. That's just annoying. Like I just don't want cords. I just don't like that stuff. Life is about wireless, not wired. Okay, that's just for me. Lastly, I need the price point to be about 100 to $200. That's where my budget is. I'm not really looking for the super high end, like the Astro A50s, the Sennheisers, the Bang Olufsens. they're like a little bit too pricey. And again, like I'm not at a player level that would need that type of craziness. I mean, sure, would I like to have one? Absolutely. Do I need one? Probably not. At the same time, though, I'm not gonna get like an entry level headset that's, what I generally consider to be around like 50, $60. Anything under 100, I kind of consider that entry level. So I want something mid tier, something that's still good, but not going to break the bank. So these are kind of my criteria in terms of what I'm looking for for my next headset. So let's get into the headsets themselves of what I've looked at. So I have went through 6 different headsets during my time over the last 2 weeks or so. Um, and these are the ones that I've looked at. So first off, in the top left corner is the Corsair Virtuoso SE. That was about $180. The Steel Series Arctis 9, that's $200. So right on the cusp of my budget. HyperX Cloud Alpha, they are about 170. The Razer Black Shark V2 Pro, that's 140. Razer Kraken V3 Pro 163, and the Astro A20 Gen 2, that was $120. Oops, sorry about that. So these are the 6 headsets that I've gone through, that I've tested, I guess relatively thoroughly, and pretty much all of them were highly rated in terms of when I Googled just like best kinds of headsets, and I went through several different websites just to look at, because I went through PC Mag, IGN, and I pretty much looked for all the common denominators. Okay, which headsets are commonly listed on each one of these lists? And I went through about 10 different websites, because any one website could be biased, and they can just be like, oh, okay, we all got paid by Corsair to review their headset, so we're just put a number one, right? So I went through several of them just to make sure that there wasn't too much bias, and these were the 6 that pretty much came up on every single one. I mean, there were a few more with like other brand names I actually never heard of. I'm sure they're still good, but they were also outside my price range. So some of the more expensive ones I couldn't get my hands on, or I couldn't afford to get my hands on. But these are the ones that were common on every list that I was willing to look at. Maybe I'll look at some wired ones later, but as of right now, I'm only looking through these 6. So first things first, fit. Unfortunately, 3 of these did not fit my head. So between the Corsair, the Steel Series, and the Astro, none of these things fit my head. The Corsair barely fit. Like I was pretty much on its max setting, and in order for it to fit my head, I would have to like press down on the top of the Corsairs in order just to fit over my ears. Like while I can still hear through them, pretty much like the bottom of the ear, or like of the cushions, was on my earlobes instead of cupping my entire ear. So they were barely fitting me. So it was a huge bummer, because I actually really like that. Corsairs, like they were super good quality. Like the build was just so nice, and just the overall design. I love the simplicity of it. The mic was really nice. It was detachable, but unfortunately, it just did not fit my fat head, which I was just so bummed, because I really wanted to use those. And it comes, ready to use in terms of like it's compatible with IQ software, or not compatible, but it uses IQ software because that's all Corsair, and I'm already using that, so that would have been easy. In terms of the Steel Series, again, barely could not fit my head at all. In fact, I think this is one of the worst design flaws, is that the arch, or at least like the headband that it comes with, it's pretty much one size. Like the only thing that it can get is smaller, not really bigger. There is a band that's in the middle of the headband that can be adjusted to fit, slightly bigger heads, but not my head. Like this thing would not fit me. This is for anyone with, I guess, normal size heads, which is not mine. Which is also a huge bummer, because pretty much almost every list I went through said Steel Series Arctis line of headsets were like number one, which was which again, huge bummer, because like these were the best headphones by far from a lot of reviewers on the market, including like forums like Reddit, but they just didn't fit my head. So I'm hoping if SteelSeries ever sees this, that they will make a bigger headset because I want to use their products, but they don't fit me. Huge bummer. Huge bummer. Next is also the Astro A20s. Again, they don't fit my head at all. I thought that there was a little bit more give to their settings, but the picture that you see now on this is the max setting. I thought there was going to be a little bit more. You can pull down on the earpieces a little bit more and extend the top a little bit more. But no, it was already at its max setting straight out of the box, and it only gets smaller from that point. So similarly, just couldn't fit my head, and that was a huge bummer. But between the Razors and the Hyper X Cloud Alpha, all of them fit my head pretty well. So thankfully, I was able to test more thoroughly between the two Razors and the HyperX um, headset. So those things fit my head pretty much very, very well. Almost no issues in terms of fit. So next we'll talk about comfort. Now, in terms of comfortability, all of these are fairly comfortable. In terms of long-term use, I use all of these for a few hours straight, and I would say that it's relatively pretty comfortable. Like, there wasn't a whole lot of one thing I try to avoid is that my ears, like if there's too much pressure on my ears, they get sore after a while. So that was the number one thing I looked for, and luckily none of these made my ears sore because most of the pressure was on the cups itself and on the cushions. So I feel like that's a good sign for me. In terms of the band, like everything else, like I didn't feel like it was too heavy. And yeah, I mean overall, like very comfortable. However, the HyperX were a little bit extra warm due to the leather. So it is good quality leather that's on the HyperX. So, but at the same time, it definitely made me a bit warmer, even with like a fan on me and my AC blasting. After every use, when I took off my headphones, I can tell like, oh man, like I need to clean these things immediately. I probably need to do that with my headphones in general, regardless if it's leather or cloth. But it was just a lot more noticeable when they're using the leather, So I was like, it made me feel a little bit more grossed out knowing how much like perspiration that was coming out of me. While I wasn't sweating bullets, it was still obviously I felt warmer. And that can definitely happen even if like I'm in an air cooled room or like an AC room, because sometimes when you're playing Apex or Warzone or whatever, that's kind of high intensity. You start generating more body heat, and that definitely showed on the HyperX more than normal. Next, in terms of sound, all of these had great sound. All of these had custom software that you can adjust the EQ settings. You can do spatial THX spatial sounds, and different types of other higher quality sound features, I guess you can say. So all these were really good. I really enjoyed arguably the HyperX and the Razer Black Sharks a little bit more. However, on the Kraken, I found a weird thing with the pair that I had. I don't know if this is common with every pair of Krakens, but with mine, the volume needed to be at a certain height or like a set relatively high to work properly. It was really weird. The dial had to be set way past 50% in order for sound to come through both of the headsets or both the right and the left properly. I mean, sound was coming through both of them all the time, but for some reason, the right side was a little bit louder than my left. And I was playing, depending on what game I was playing, the sound wasn't always coming. Everything always sounded like it was coming through only my right hand side. It was still working on the left. Like if I were to just take off the right hand side and just listen on my left, I can still hear the sound, but it was very faint. But if I set the volume past a certain point, then it came through both sides perfectly. I thought that was a really weird feature, or at least a really weird thing that happened to the pair that I had. I don't know if this is common in all razors or just the Krakens, because it definitely wasn't happen on the black sharks on the white pair. It was only happening on the Kraken. So I don't know what that was, but and I really wanted to keep the Krakens, but because of that feature, I couldn't really use the headset properly because it just got too loud at that point. So that was a really big, huge bummer for me. In terms of in terms of like sound quality. One thing about the Krakens also that it comes with Hypersense, which is basically it's like it vibrates. So if you play really exciting or like games with a lot of explosions or a lot of sound effects, it will basically vibrate to kind of simulate the explosions, and it'll also vibrate to let you know where certain things are, which was kind of a nice feature, but also drains the batteries like incredibly fast. So while it's kind of nice to be immersive, depending on what you're playing, it's definitely not a good feature if you're playing competitive. So you don't need that stuff if you're playing, just say Warzone day in day out or Apex day in day out. You don't need that type of feature. But if you're saying you're playing the campaign mode, then that could be kind of fun to have that vibration on you. But otherwise, it's not really necessary. The one thing I found weird with the Black Sharks, the THX spatial is way too soft and arguably unusable. So I have to use the normal Windows spatial sound setting for these suckers, and then not the THX ones because it was so soft. Everything sounded like it was 10 feet away. So it was just unusable. I had to, even if I cranked it all the way up, the volume on my headset, it just basically didn't register. It almost felt like there was like no difference. So that was kind of a bummer because I really wanted to use the THX spatial sound setting, but I couldn't with these. So that was a big bummer. Overall, I would say the sound on the HyperX that was easily the best. That I didn't have to really do any too much tinkering in order for it to sound great. In terms of sound quality, I would say the HyperX Cloud Alphas were definitely on top here. Next, in terms of mic, not too much to say here. Like I said earlier, I basically mainly use my Blue Yeti mic. But one thing I really did like was that for the Razors, you if you download the Razer Synapse app onto your computer, you can change the different quality of mic in terms of how you broadcast to the sound quality from the mic. So there's like initial default setting, but then there's also like a gaming setting, a broadcast setting, or some other type of setting in order to kind of change how the sound comes out or how it's being recorded or broadcasted out. I thought that was a little bit nicer. I don't remember if I don't think that was on the HyperX one itself, in their Genuity software. But I like that on the Razors. It was definitely a good nice to have in terms of getting it to broadcast or at least have a better mic quality. I did notice also but the HyperX was also a little bit dimmer, like in terms of the I felt like I had to speak a little louder in order for it to actually pick up my voice, and had to speak a lot louder and a lot more clearly for my friends to hear me when I would play some kind of battle royale with them. So that was definitely a little bit different on that end. But overall, all the mics are pretty much good enough. If you're looking to just use the mics straight up on the headsets themselves, they're pretty much good. But for me, I was just using my Blue Yeti, and I'm sticking with it. So there's that. Build wise, everything felt pretty good. I would say the build quality on the HyperX were the best. The metal kind of like forks that are the red forks that are holding the earpieces that you can see right here. They were definitely thick pieces of metal that felt like they felt real strong. Like they weren't flimsy or anything. It didn't feel like I can just like bend them. I mean, I could if I like tried, but you would try hard. You couldn't, like, if you were accidentally sat on them or just lean them against something, they won't warp or anything like that. They're really good quality. That was a big plus. The build on the Krakens, the black pair, also really good. Mostly plastic, but good quality plastic. Like, if you've handled enough of these, you can sometimes feel what's the difference between like good quality plastic and like really cheap plastic. That wasn't, that was kind of one thing. With the Black Shark Pros, one thing that I'm not crazy about are the rods that are connected to from the headband to the headset. The black rods, they don't feel terribly strong. Overall, they're not weak or anything. I would say in terms of strength, they're very equivalent to a metal coat hanger. So I would say, but metal coat hanger, but definitely a lot more rigid. So so I would say overall, they're still pretty strong. Like, as I'm still touching them now, like they're still pretty, uh, they're pretty good at quality. Like, but I think they could be a little thicker in terms of the feel, just to make it feel a little bit more secure, even though they do feel strong overall. I would say that just having it thicker gives me a more of a peace of mind, instead of the thin rods that they currently have, because it definitely just feels brittle, even though it could just be in my head. Another thing about the HyperX, oops, is that the cords felt very low quality. The cords that came with these versus all the other gaming headsets is that they were not braided. The cords were very rigid rubber casing in it, or like the surrounding it, and they just didn't feel like, they felt kind of cheap, to be honest. And also the packaging that the Hyper Cloud X that came in made the headsets feel cheap. I know that's like a very fickle thing to talk about, but I don't know. Like, I think the packaging kind of makes it a big deal. It should, like, gives it an experience. Like, when you do unboxings, when certain items just come in better packaging, it feels like you're getting a better quality item. And for the HyperX, I felt like the packaging just made it feel like a toy. Like, it was all plastic. The plastic box that it came, or like the box, and then like the plastic kind of casing that it came in, it all made the HyperX feel more like a toy than like a quality gaming headset. Like something that was like just more, um, just good quality that came, because like all these other headsets came in like some kind of like foam cushion, that like kind of caressed the headset, so that when you took it out of the box, it really made it feel like an occasion. Versus the HyperX one, it was just like, oh yeah, here's your headset, still good quality headset. It doesn't take away from the quality of the headset, but it just made it feel cheap. Like, it made me feel like I was unboxing like an action figure, you know, something like from like Target that I would get from as a kid. That's how it felt like. So that was kind of a bummer, like that it didn't give me a better experience. Not that that really takes away from the headphones, but it just kind of made me feel like, these. I wasn't as excited to open the HyperX headphones. So that's basically the message I'm trying to convey. Okay, in terms of extras that were on the three headphones that I actually tried, um, I think one of the probably the best things that were, at least from the Razer headphones, is that they can be wired. They comes with a 3.5 millimeter cord for each of them, each of the headphones for the Razers, and so you can use a wired version for that. So I thought that was a really really neat feature for these Razers, because otherwise you wouldn't really get to experience a wired headset. Like, it was for most of these headsets, it was wired or nothing. I mean, wireless or nothing. And whereas for the Krakens, you could have it wired or you can have it wireless. It gave you both options. I thought that was a really nice feature for what we were paying at the end of the day. There were no really extras for the HyperX ones, unfortunately. Um, but I thought that was, yeah, I thought that was a really nice feature. So, anyways, that's my review, or at least my journey of going through each of the headsets. So you're probably wondering, well, which ones did you actually get? So let me show you which ones at the end of the day I actually got, or I decided to keep. They were oh, the Razer Black Shark V2 Pros. All right, so these are the white ones, as you can see here. The picture in the middle. These, at the end of the day, I feel like really checked off all the. I mean, they checked off most of the boxes that I was looking for. They're comfortable. It's fabric on both the top of this headband and the cups here. They're removable, so you can easily wash them or like clean them. I did say earlier the rods here were a little bit felt flimsy, but actually they're pretty damn strong. Like the only thing that I'm not crazy about this in terms of design is that when you adjust the overall size for the head, while it can definitely expand a great deal and also close in a great deal, these rods move independently from the cylinders, I guess you can call them. So for me, who is like a little bit anal retentive, I'm constantly making sure that these rods are even, which is kind of like a ridiculous thing, but for me, it was just a kind of annoying. It was a little bit of a kind of a bothersome just something that like I don't know. I felt like the design itself, like maybe they just could have like used something that was like, did it have to be these wires, or like these like kind of rods here? I feel like they could have used something else, but I like the fact that even these cables here, the wiring um, is braided, so that I feel like that's just good quality. Overall, I just love these things. The only thing I'm not crazy about is that it uses mini USB in terms of the charging cable. All the other headphones were using U, uh, USB C cables, and so I feel like that is just a little bit easier in terms of quality of life. Like, there's really, I mean, I don't know how much difference there is in terms of how quickly it charges and all that jazz, but I would, at least with USB C, you don't have to look for a perfect angle or like make sure that the cord is faced the right way in order to plug it in. You can just plug it in however, right? Like whether it's facing one way or the other, you just shove it in. Versus mini USB, you have to match the settings, right? So I felt like that it was a bit of a bad design in terms of quality of life, but also not a huge deal. Like it takes an extra second to just make sure the cord is going in the right way. But overall, like I'm not gonna not buy a pair of headphones just because it's not using USB C, and uses mini USB, But overall, again, this is the one I got. It looks great. I love the white. I could have gotten the black ones, but I just something about the white ones that made it just look a little bit more sleek, a lot cleaner. All these headphones are black basically, which was kind of a. I was like, dude, do they not have any more like any other colors? So when I saw the white, I was like, I got the white, and it's the same price as the black one, so I didn't see a point in not getting it. A lot of these other ones, if they did come in different colors, it would actually be more expensive. So that was kind of a bummer, to be honest. Um, and I wasn't gonna pay for that just because it came in a different color. So overall, that's kind of what I looked for, and again, the Razer Black Sharks are what I ended up going with. At the end of the day, these are great in terms of sound quality, the usability, and I honestly, um, if you even saw any of my recent streams, you'll see me using these as I was testing them. But you'll also see in earlier ones I was using the HyperX Cloud Alpha. So Anyways, that's kind of my take on the 6 headphones that I tested. Let me know what you guys are using. Let me know what you guys think of videos like this. I can do more. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Take it easy.